Earlier, my colleague Ana Cabrera spoke with a former hostage who was released by Hamas after 51 days. Aviva Siegel held back her tears as she spoke about her 64-year-old husband. His name's Keith. He is still being held hostage by Hamas.
I want everybody to just try and imagine what it's like, thrown underneath the ground 40 meters while you can hardly breathe, lying on a very filthy, dirty mattress, with no water in the toilet, hardly with any food, and just thinking, when are you going to be dead? So I want everybody to wake up, and the whole world, it should stop. What they are, their conditions are not just like a simple jail. They are there in hell, threatened in such a brutal way. And it's just the most unhuman thing for us humans to know what they're going through and to just leave them there.
The words of someone who knows what they're going through. And joining us now is Richard Haass, President Emeritus of the Council on Foreign Relations. Richard, I appreciate your being here. Prime Minister Netanyahu, as you have seen, is now digging in, at least publicly. Do you see any indication that this mounting pressure, these protests, perhaps from the U.S. and Arab negotiating partners, will force a change in Netanyahu's position?
Short answer is no, Peter. The Prime Minister has his own motives, personal and political, for not agreeing to a ceasefire. I could understand it if by continuing military operations, I thought you could, quote unquote, eliminate Hamas, but you can't. So essentially, he's doing nothing to get the hostages back in pursuit of military goals that simply cannot be accomplished. But the short answer to your question, there's no reason for optimism, no matter how hard the United States pushes. Hamas doesn't want a deal. This Israeli government doesn't want a deal.
So the UK, as you've seen, they are pausing some of their arms sales to Israel. How, Richard, could that affect other countries right now? Should the U.S. consider something similar to that?
I think it's a misguided decision, sorry to say. It's one thing to pause arms sales when Israel is using arms in ways that you believe are inconsistent with humanitarian considerations, the laws of war, what have you. But to pause them simply because Israel won't agree to a ceasefire deal seems to me wrong. It's within the purview of the Israeli government to make this choice. I think it's the wrong choice. Probably half the Israeli population thinks it's the wrong choice. The White House thinks it's the wrong choice. But that's their prerogative. They've got to decide their priorities. I think arms shipments should only be influenced if the Israelis are using arms in Gaza or anywhere else that we believe are inconsistent with the terms they're being provided.
Richard, there's so many competing forces going here. How does the U.S. election play into all of this?
Well, from Israel's point of view, it gives them more leeway. You've only got 2 more months before the election, and it gives Israel a lot of flexibility. I think it limits the influence of the administration here because they are clearly lame ducks.
Let me ask if I can. I want to switch gears very quickly to another headline we've been watching. This is those 2 American Marines who were assaulted in Turkey. This happened on video in broad daylight. It happened yesterday. These were members of a nationalist mob. They were chanting, "Yankee, go home." Here's a short clip of that. Look. You can see that moment where one of those Americans had a bag thrown over his head. Another one who was being held there against his will is shouting, "Help." Fortunately, no one was injured, at least according to the Navy, and the service members later returned to their ship. As we said, these attackers were members of what they call the Turkish Youth Union. This is a group affiliated with the Patriotic Party. For those here who don't know what that is, it's basically a nationalist political party. What does this tell us, Richard, about the broader anti-American sentiment that may exist around the world?
Well, certainly in Turkey. Turkey's long been formally an ally, Peter, but I wouldn't call them a partner. It's a real test to this government, which often is quite anti-American. Let's see what they do with these people. If they let them walk, that sends a real signal. And, every once in a while when people say, "Yankee, go home," my instincts are, let's take them up on it. If they're not going to basically create an environment where Americans who are there fulfilling our NATO obligations are not looked after, then we ought to let the Turks stew in their own juices.